There is a place in the forests of Thailand where the boundary between the living and the dead is not a wall but a doorway, where the air hangs heavy with incense and the slow rot of leaves, where silence is not the absence of sound but the presence of something ancient and undeniable, where monks, barefoot and robed in saffron, would sit through the darkest hours of the night beside a human corpse, breathing slowly, watching the body return to what it always was: earth, impermanence, truth. This is not a horror story. This is one of the most profound meditation practices in the entire history of human spiritual development. It is called Maranasati, the contemplation of death, and within the Thai forest tradition, it was practiced not as morbid fascination but as radical liberation. And today, in this quiet space we share together, we are going to walk into that forest. We are going to sit beside what the monks sat beside. And we are going to discover what they discovered, that the thing you fear most may be the very thing that sets you free. To continue healing your body and soul through these ancient teachings, I invite you to join our path by subscribing to this sanctuary. What we explore here is not entertainment. It is medicine. Ancient, tested, luminous medicine for a world that has forgotten how to be still. Close your eyes for just a moment. Feel the weight of your body in this chair, on this floor, in this life. Notice that you are here. Notice that one day you will not be. And instead of turning away from that second thought, stay with it. Just for now. Just for a breath. Because the monks of the Thai forest did not turn away. And what they found on the other side of that turning away changed everything. The first insight the forest monks carried is this: most human suffering does not come from death itself. It comes from the refusal to acknowledge that death exists. In the modern world, we have built an entire civilization around the project of forgetting. Hospitals are designed so that the dying are hidden behind curtains and closed doors. Funerals are brief and efficient. The body is managed, embalmed, cosmetically restored to look almost alive. We say someone has passed, or we lost them, or they are gone, as though death were a misplacement rather than a destination. And in the architecture of all this forgetting, we have created a kind of low, persistent anxiety that hums beneath everything we do. The monk Ajahn Chah, one of the great masters of the Thai forest tradition, once said that if you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you will have complete peace. Maranasati is the practice of letting go of the greatest thing we cling to, which is the belief that we are permanent. Breathe in. Breathe out. Notice that your breath arrives without your effort and leaves without your permission. This is the first lesson the corpse teaches. The second insight lives in the history of this practice itself. The Thai forest tradition was born in the wild northeastern forests of Thailand, in a region called Isan, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The master Ajahn Mun Buddhadatta walked these forests with almost nothing: a robe, an alms bowl, and an unwavering commitment to the original teachings of the Buddha. He and his disciples slept in caves, sat beneath trees, and sought out charnel grounds, the places where bodies were left to decompose, because they understood that the forest of death was also the forest of awakening. The practice was not invented by these monks. It was recovered. The Buddha himself in the Satipatthana Sutta described 9 stages of a decomposing body and instructed his monks to contemplate each stage clearly, not to punish themselves, not to cultivate disgust, but to see with absolute clarity what the body is. And what it is borrowed. Every atom you call yourself was once a star, a stone, a river, a root. Maranasati is simply the practice of returning what was never truly yours. The third insight requires us to talk about fear. When young monks in the Thai forest tradition were sent to sit with a corpse through the night, many of them experienced terror. Not abstract terror, but the cold, visceral, stomach-dropping fear of a human animal confronting its own inevitable end. Ajahn Lee, one of Ajahn Mun's closest disciples, described sitting in a forest temple as a young monk when a body was placed nearby. He heard sounds in the trees. He felt the air shift. His mind produced every horror it was capable of producing. And then something happened. He said the fear reached a peak so high, so absolute, that it broke open like a wave. And on the other side of that breaking was a stillness he had never known before. This is the paradox at the heart of Maranasati. The thing that terrifies us most when we stop running from it, when we turn and face it completely, does not destroy us. It empties us. And emptiness, in the Buddhist understanding, is not a loss. It is the very nature of freedom. Feel your hands right now. Feel the warmth in them. Feel the aliveness moving through your fingers like a current. This aliveness that you feel so vividly, so undeniably, was not always here and will not always be here. That is not a tragedy. That is the most honest thing anyone has ever said to you. The fourth insight is about the body as teacher. In the modern world, we relate to our bodies primarily as instruments, things that carry us from meeting to meeting, things to be optimized and decorated and disciplined into performing. We treat the body as something to manage rather than something to listen to. But the monks who practiced Maranasati learned to listen to the body in its most extreme state, in the state of radical honesty that only a corpse can offer. A corpse does not perform. It does not worry about how it appears. It does not hold tension in its shoulders or clench its jaw against the next crisis. It has surrendered entirely to what is. And in that surrender, the monks saw something that no philosophy textbook could teach them. They saw the difference between what we are and what we pretend to be. They saw that beneath all the performing and the striving and the protecting, there is something in us that is already at rest. The practice was to find that rest while still breathing, to embody what the corpse had discovered, without having to die to discover it. Right now, without changing anything, let your shoulders fall just a little. Let your jaw soften. Let the muscles around your eyes release. This is a tiny practice of what the monks practiced in the forest. A small rehearsal of letting go. The fifth insight belongs to impermanence, which the monks called anicca. Everything that arises passes. Everything that assembles will dissolve. The stars burn and go dark. Mountains rise and erode into sand. Civilizations appear and are swallowed by jungle. And every human being who has ever drawn breath has also stopped drawing breath. This is not pessimism. This is, as the monks understood it, the most liberating fact in the universe. Because if everything changes, then nothing you are going through right now is the final word on your life. The grief that feels permanent will shift. The failure that feels defining will dissolve. The version of yourself you are convinced is stuck will because it must become something else. One monk in the Thai forest, a Western student of Ajahn Chah named Ajahn Sumdho, described the moment he truly internalized impermanence while sitting in meditation. He said it felt like the floor falling away beneath him, not into darkness, but into openness. A sudden understanding that there is nothing to hold because holding is the source of the pain. Anicca is not a concept to understand with the mind. It is something to be felt in the body, in the breath, in the slow realization that you have been gripping something that was never solid to begin with. The sixth insight takes us deeper into the forest, into something the monks called the charnel ground practice, a specific form of Maranasati where monks would observe the stages of bodily decomposition directly and systematically. Not as punishment, not as self-mortification, but as a mirror. In the Visuddhimagga, the ancient meditation manual, these stages are described with clinical precision. The fresh corpse, the bloated body, the discolored and festering body, the fissured body, the gnawed body, the scattered body, the bones, the dust. And the monk was to sit with each stage and reflect, this body, this very body I inhabit, is of the same nature. It is not exempt. And something extraordinary happened in this practice, something modern psychology is only beginning to understand. When we confront mortality directly rather than suppressing it, our priorities reorganize themselves. The things we were anxious about, the opinions of others, the accumulation of status, the management of image, suddenly appear for what they are, arrangements of sand on a beach before the tide. And what remains after that recognition is not despair. It is clarity. It is the ability to love without grasping, to give without calculating, to be present without the constant negotiation of what this moment is costing you or earning you. Breathe in slowly and feel the air entering you. Feel how it travels into you from the world outside your skin. And as you exhale, feel how it returns to that same world. You are in a continuous exchange with everything around you. You have never been as separate as you thought. The seventh insight belongs to the teacher most associated with bringing this tradition to the modern world, Ajahn Chah of Wat Pa Pong. He was a man who laughed often and spoke plainly, who had an extraordinary capacity to meet students exactly where they were and point them toward the truth they were already standing in. He kept a skull on his desk, not to be dramatic, not to perform some dark aesthetic, but as a practical reminder. He would point to it when students became lost in ambition, in resentment, in the small urgencies of ego, and he would say, "This is where we are all going." And the remarkable thing was that this was not said with cruelty. It was said with warmth, with something close to humor. Because Ajahn Chah understood what so many of us do not, that the awareness of death is not the opposite of joy. It is joy's closest companion. When you know a thing is temporary, truly know it, not as a concept but as a felt reality in your bones, you stop postponing your gratitude. You stop saving your love for some more appropriate moment. You stop waiting to be fully present until the conditions are perfect. The skull on the desk was not a memento of horror. It was an invitation to wake up now. The eighth insight is perhaps the most personal, and it asks you to do something uncomfortable. It asks you to consider what you are avoiding. Not in theory. Specifically. Right now. What is the thing in your life you are circling around but not facing? What is the conversation you have been postponing, the truth you have been softening, the change you have been deferring? Because Maranasati teaches us that avoidance is not safety. Avoidance is a slow, invisible suffering that accumulates in the body as tension, in the mind as anxiety, and in the spirit as a dull, persistent sense of being unlived. The monks in the forest did not sit with corpses because they were comfortable with death. They sat with corpses because they were committed to truth. And the truth always begins with facing what is actually there. Not the story about it. Not the interpretation. The thing itself. If you are carrying grief, the practice is not to resolve it tonight but to turn toward it rather than away. If you are carrying fear, the practice is not to eliminate it but to sit with it the way a monk sits with a corpse. Not at a distance, not with drama, but with steady, compassionate, unflinching presence. Feel the weight of whatever you have been carrying. Do not try to put it down yet. Simply acknowledge that it is there. Breathe with it. This is the beginning of what the forest monks practiced. This turning toward rather than away. The ninth and final insight is the one the Thai forest masters called the gift. After the long night in the forest, after the fear had risen and broken, after the mind had exhausted its capacity for horror and resistance, something was given. Not earned exactly, not achieved through striving, but given in the way the morning is given to those who have sat through the darkness. Monks who completed these vigils described a quality of aliveness that was unlike anything they had known before. Every sensation intensified. Colors appeared saturated and vivid. Sounds arrived with a kind of holiness. The simple act of breathing became extraordinary. A bowl of rice, eaten mindfully after a night beside a corpse, tasted like gratitude made physical. This is what the practice was always pointing toward, not toward death as an end but toward life as it actually is when we are no longer insulated from its preciousness by our comfortable forgetting. The Thai forest tradition teaches that we do not need to wait for a terminal diagnosis to wake up to the beauty of being alive. We do not need to lose everything before we appreciate what we have. Maranasati is the practice of waking up on purpose, of choosing to see clearly what most people spend their lives avoiding seeing. And in that clarity, in that unflinching willingness to sit with the full truth of our condition, the forest masters found not despair but a love for life so wide and so unconditional that it could not be threatened even by death. The forest is still there. The charnel grounds are still there, not as historical curiosities but as living practices within the Thai forest monasteries that continue to this day. Monks still sit in the dark with the reality of mortality. Students still travel from every continent to practice in those forests, to sit with the thing that cannot be managed or optimized or scrolled past. And what they find, every one of them, beneath the fear and the resistance and the story, is what you carry in you right now in this very moment. Awareness. Pure, present, luminous awareness. The thing that watches your thoughts without becoming them. The thing that feels your breath without controlling it. The thing that has been here since your first breath and will be here until your last. Some teachers call it Buddha nature. Some call it the witness. Some call it the ground of being. The Thai forest masters simply pointed to it, the way you point at the moon, and invited you to stop looking at the finger. You are sitting somewhere right now. A room, a park, a vehicle moving through a world you did not make and will not keep. You are breathing without effort. You are aware without trying to be. And somewhere beneath the anxiety about tomorrow and the weight of yesterday, there is something in you that is already at peace. It has always been at peace. The monks did not sit with the dead to find something new. They sat with the dead to remember something old, something so fundamental to what we are that we have to be frightened into seeing it. You are alive. Temporarily, astonishingly, completely alive. And that is not something to manage. That is something to receive with both hands open, the way the forest receives the morning rain, without comment, without analysis, without reservation. Simply allowing what is given to enter. Simply being here in this breath, in this moment, in this one irreplaceable life. The forest is patient. The teachings are ancient. And you have already taken the first step simply by being willing to sit here and listen to what the darkness has to say. May you be well. May you be at peace. And may the truth that the forest monks carried in their hands be carried now in yours.